Hello YouTube. The other day I made a video about Ripple and how I think it is severely undervalued right now and could go into the tens if not hundreds in the coming years. Today I want to talk about EOS, another controversial coin. I'm not going to give any specific price predictions here, but I just want to talk about the project in general, about the upsides, about some of the downsides, and whether I think it's a good investment to put some money into. Now, disclaimer in the beginning, like I always say, I'm not an analyst, I'm not a professional, I'm not doing price predictions, I'm not telling you where to put your money, please do your own research. But let's just start this video. I'm gonna go through an article explaining what EOS is, then I'm gonna go through a few articles explaining some of the downsides of EOS. Then I'm going through some of the current events going on with it, and a final article summarizing all the stuff and giving a general prediction, but without a specific price prediction, because I haven't seen any convincing ones for EOS yet. Maybe I haven't looked in the right places. I also think for EOS it might simply be a bit too early, because the use cases are not as clear-cut as with, say, Ripple. Where for XRP you know exactly how big the problem is that they are trying to tackle, you know which companies they're working with, and you can use that to make a very good estimate, a very good valuation for how much a coin should be worth. Here, let's just go. Let's just read this together. What is EOS? A beginner's guide from Coin Central. This is just a general history of the coin and what it does, and then afterwards they have an article with some of the critical positions about it. Introduction to EOS. EOS is a blockchain platform for the development of decentralized applications, similar to Ethereum in function. It makes dApp development, or dApp, I never know how to pronounce this, easy by providing an operating system-like set of services and functions that dApps can make use of. The idea behind EOS is to bring together the best features and promises of the various smart contract technologies out there, for instance the security of Bitcoin and the computing support of Ethereum, in one simple-to-use, massively scalable dApp platform for the everyday user to empower the impeding blockchain economy. Now let me just chime in here quickly. One of the big problems with many of the major coins right now is even the ones that you can build dApps onto, they are not very scalable, and they would never be able to hold, at least in their current form, they would never be able to take the weight of an active economy working on top of them. EOS aims to change that and claims they successfully do. They claim that they're essentially infinitely scalable, but we'll get to that. How EOS works. The EOS vision is to build a blockchain dApp platform that can securely and smoothly scale to thousands of transactions a second, all while providing an accessible experience to app developers, entrepreneurs, and users. They aim to provide a complete operating system for decentralized applications focused on the web, by providing services like user authentication, cloud storage, and server hosting. The EOS network is a ready-made platform for apps that lets developers tap into a full-featured authentication system. This is a lot of stuff here. User accounts, complete with different permission levels and their own locally secured user data, come as a feature of the network. You're also able to share database access between accounts and store user data on a local machine off the blockchain. Recovery for stolen accounts is baked into the system as well. Server hosting and cloud storage are part of the EOS system. This opens developers up to bring their ideas into reality free from the demands of securing storage and bandwidth. You might have noticed I'm skipping over some parts here, I'm just trying to get the important stuff. Most common blockchains use consensus over state, meaning that at any point all of the computers on the network can verify the current state of the entire blockchain. The blockchain in those cases is a graph of the state of the system, and when each new block is added, nodes on the network take each transaction from the block and update the state of each address associated with those transactions. So essentially everyone has a full ledger that they keep updated all the time. When using consensus over events, the focus is on the transactions as opposed to the state. Instead of verifying the state of the network at any given time, nodes verify the series of events that have occurred so far to keep track of the network state. The result is a system that takes longer to reconfirm, but can handle a much higher throughput of transactions while running. What this means is that the network can scale to 1 million messages or transactions per second out of the gate on a single machine, with theoretically infinite scaling possible between multiple machines. Now, another main difference is that EOS does not require any kind of micropayments when you're sending messages. This leaves it up to app developers to determine how transaction fees will be paid and how low they will be, how high they will be. There are some transaction fees, but they're significantly lower than most other cryptos, meaning companies are free to come up with their own monetization strategies and offer their user services for free or not. EOS system provides a governance model based on block producers that can vote on which transactions are confirmed, whether an application is running correctly, and on changes to the source code. This means that the community can actively upgrade, downgrade, and fix bugs in the system in a democratic and secure manner. EOS system reduces the latency and maximizes performance by structuring each block even more finely into cycles, which are sequentially performed. Now the roadmap. The EOS project is being developed by a company called Block One, led by Dan Larimer, who previously co-founded BitShares and Steemit, and Brandon Bloomer. The first version was released September 2017, and since then they have put out a new version every 3 or 4 months. There was a token sale in the beginning. It took place over a full year starting June 26, 2017 with 350 periods of distribution, while most have one or just a handful. At the end of each period, the total number of EOS tokens designated for the period were distributed to blah blah blah. This isn't that important. During this time, EOS tokens were listed on most of the major exchanges, therefore the price was mainly determined by the market already while it was coming out. The EOS token itself doesn't perform a function. It's only useful in that developers developing applications on the platform are required to use EOS tokens to generate their specific tokens. So it's meant to build applications on top of it that have their own tokens, but to get these tokens you need to have EOS tokens. So any application that runs on top of it will have their own token, but there will be an equal number of EOS tokens locked in to make those. And each application's acceptance on the platform is contingent on voting by EOS token holders. Conclusion: EOS is a controversial project with a proven team, lofty vision, but questionable execution so far. They made a $4 billion budget. That is how much they made from the initial offering. Should be more than enough though for the project to accomplish all it set out to do. The next couple of years will be crucial for the platform to place a foothold in the dApp market. Now, this article is sounding very, very positive. I mean, the technology sounds sound. They sound like they have real use cases. They sound like they have a good team, and they have a shit ton of money. Anyone with $4 billion in funding should be fine for a while. But EOS does have some red flags and some controversial things about it, and the next article outlines these. Putting EOS on trial, an analysis of cryptocurrency's largest ICO. This is by the same website, CoinCentral. I don't think it's the same writer though. Let me just check that quickly. James Wisberg and Stephen Bushko. So different writers and also a week and a half apart. Now this is an article where this guy goes through the main arguments against EOS and tries to rate how accurate they are, gives pro and con arguments, and then comes down with his personal opinion. So let's go through these as well. Case number 1, EOS is centralized. Of course, if you've been in the crypto world for a while, you know that centralization is a very, very bad word in this community. That is a very ideological thing for a lot of people. A lot of people are in crypto because they're against centralized payments, against centralized monetary markets. Like, cryptocurrencies still have a very countercultural thing about them. There's a lot of movements against the traditional financial models that are controlled by individual countries or individual financial entities. So centralized currencies are. let's look at the let's look at the actual points made here. Now there's a tweet quoted. No coin is fully decentralized yet, but some like Bitcoin are on the path to decentralization. I was very bullish on EOS because I respect the team. However, this is shameful. I'm putting EOS in the same category as Ripple, Charlie Schwem. And the reason he is putting it in the same category as Ripple, calling it too centralized, is that EOS froze 7 accounts because their funds were phished from them or scammed from them. Now, evidence. EOS uses delegated proof-of-stake consensus algorithm consisting of just 21 nodes that create and validate blocks. That is way fewer than Ethereum, who has over 10,000, so of course it's more centralized because it's between 21 people, or groups of people. The cryptocurrency community generally looks down upon dissecting the EOS voting mechanisms furthers the argument of centralization. By staking your tokens, you can select up to 30 block producers to act as nodes. The 21 with the most votes earn the right to validate blocks. However, the more EOS you stake, the more powerful your vote becomes. So this is not This is a democracy, but one that represents how much of the product you have. So think of it like owning stock to a company. If you own 51%, you have full control. This isn't a democratic election like you would see in a country where everyone's vote counts the same. Not only does this put more control into the hands of the few, but it could also have the detrimental impact of voter apathy. As smaller holders realize they have little to no voting power, they may become apathetic and refuse to vote at all. We've already seen this indifference as the platform struggled to reach 15% needed to validate the chain. This happened when they were building the chain initially. It took way longer than it was supposed to because they couldn't get the votes together. It isn't an inherently flawed system until you realize that just 10 addresses hold about half of the tokens. Most of these are probably exchanges, but a few of them are also just people who have a lot of them. One of them is the company that started it. They own 10%, I believe. There's also the possibility that block producers collude with each other and that they could offer stuff for each other and then choose to vote in a certain way. The defense. EOS may not be as decentralized as other cryptocurrencies, but it's decentralized enough to be effective. 21 nodes is still better than the one-party systems in place today, where one bank or one country is the only person who controls everything. Additionally, token holders still have a democratic voice. Similar to political democracies, each holder votes on their representation, and they can easily vote out block producers that are acting against the will of the community. According to the EOS constitution, all block producers need to disclose any owners who hold at least 1% equity. Therefore, all voters can check to see if any person or entity has ownership in multiple. If someone does, and a network participants feel as if there's too much centralization, they'll remove the block producer and elect new ones. This, of course, against collusion. There needs to be some sacrifice to decentralization to reach a level of scalability that can handle the real-world volume. EOS solves the scaling issues that Ethereum and other dApp platforms face. And then there's a comparison to Visa, who can do 24,000 transactions per second, Ethereum can do 15, and EOS should be able to do many of thousands and can do 1,000 just on a single blockchain. So that is the counter argument. And this person's verdict is it is too centralized, but not very badly so. And in my opinion, this is very much an ideological issue. I personally look at EOS as an investment. I look at it as a means of wealth creation. I think about whether I think the prices will perform well, and I'm not in it for the I'm not in it because I keep messing up the last couple days. I'm so sorry. I'm still a bit nervous about talking on a microphone like this. I'm in it for the investment. I'm not in it because I agree with the ideology or because I'm personally convinced by what they're trying to achieve. I think outside of the crypto world, this would be a good company. I think this is a good technology project. I'm not in it because I'm aiming for a decentralized marketplace. I'm in it because I'm here to invest. My name is the German investor. So that is what I'm doing here. So this is, for me personally, not an issue, but I understand if it is one for you. I don't personally mind that much how centralized a crypto network is, unless that centralization is likely to seriously mess with your ability to use it. And in this case, I think they have a good reason to be relatively centralized because they need that scalability, they need to have a lot going on that system, and they need to be able to make decisions. Now, next up, case number 2, Dan Larimer is a scam artist. This is because the guy has started 2 other companies in the last couple of years and has then quickly moved on to new projects. He has started Steam and BitChess. Now, I'm not going to read out this whole thing because it's not as important. But in general, the point he made here was he started all these and he pretty much instantly left and he made a lot of money in the process. And the counter argument is the very simple one. He's a serial entrepreneur. He builds up a company, and once it's up and running, he can do something else. He's not. He's in the business of starting projects, not in seeing them through once they've been established. And that is valid. That is valid in my opinion. It also simply comes down to your personal interests. Are you interested in running a company for 10-20 years, or are you interested in building one? And he strikes me as a guy who is interested in building them, but I could see why this might personally worry you. This guy comes to the conclusion innocent, that the claims are overblown. Number 3, the ICO was fraudulent. The evidence. EOS held a year-long uncapped ICO in which it raised over $4 billion without a working project. It was only recently that they switched to their own chain. There's also some evidence that the team funneled part of their funding back into the ICO. The defense: the format was to prevent centralization and provide a fair token distribution. With the recent waves of subpoenas and arrests, it's unlikely that foul play at the magnitude of EOS's level would slip through the cracks. We live in a nation of innocent until proven guilty. Yeah, if you're in America, that is true. Not everywhere, sadly. And right now, there's not enough evidence for the conviction. And the verdict: insanity plea. I really like this. Essentially, the verdict here is that it's not fraud, it's incompetence. They messed up. They just human error. They fucked up, but they weren't trying to fraud anyone out of money. I'm gonna read out this whole section because I feel like it's important to put it in his words. The EOS ICO was probably not fraudulent, however it was incredibly negligent. There aren't many good reasons why a project should raise more than a few $1 million, let alone $4 billion without a working product. It's inevitable that a budget of that size will only lead to poor financial decisions as the project progresses. This isn't a new story, it's a common problem with overfunded startups. And the EOS mainnet launch has been far from perfect. We're gonna look at that in another article in a moment. Leading up to the mainnet release, Chinese internet security company Kaiho, I have no idea, reported several high-risk vulnerabilities on the network. Although bugs are bound to surface in software, especially software as complicated as a blockchain ecosystem, it's worrisome that a project with billions of dollars in funding couldn't find these beforehand. The EOS team has since fixed the reported bugs. Shortly after, EOS started a bug bounty program to catch any final flaws. Within 1 week, a single hacker reported 12 vulnerabilities, earning $120,000. Once again, you would expect a project with such a large budget to have these issues resolved. The project currently has over 500 issues open on GitHub. This I agree is a serious issue. They raised too much money. They didn't have a project yet. They do have that project now, and it seems to be working relatively well, but there are certainly still bugs that need to be solved. On the other hand, I think with $4 billion in funding, they have everything they need to get rid of those issues. Now, next up, case 4. The EOS constitution is unethical. Evidence: they have a constitution that you must follow. Failure to support it may result in the invalidation of your transactions or the freezing of your funds. This blockchain has no owners, managers, or fiduciaries, therefore no member shall have more than 10% interest. 10% of course being exactly what Block 1, the company that started the EOS project, has. Members shall be liable for losses caused by false or misleading attestations and shall forfeit any profit gained thereby. Now, in a normal product, the one that isn't decentralized, this would be standard. This would be standard if you were signing terms of service to a company, but I can see how this goes against the spirit of crypto for a lot of people, because if you can be punished, that means someone is punishing you. And it's not the large crowd of the system, it's a centralized place where they can punish you. Now, the guy here says we can all agree that lying and perjury are terrible things, but this seems nearly impossible to enforce. Once again, who acts as the judge when these cases appear? Community members are also worried that this is a slippery slope that could lead to censorship. And then the most worrisome one, and this is the one that I also do not like, and I hope they will take out of the constitution. The beauty of having a constitution that can be voted on, and that means that at some point that can also be amended. So hopefully this will be changed or taken out. After 3 years of inactivity, an account may be put up for auction, and the proceeds distributed to all members by removing it from circulation. What the fuck were they thinking? This is insane. This means if you just leave your money in a wallet and you don't do anything for 3 years, and you think you had your money there, it can just be gone. That is fucked up, and that is not okay. And that is for me, that is the red flag. This is the real issue that they need to resolve. And it is possible that they resolved it and it flew below the radar for me, but I haven't heard anything about this, so I think it is still an issue. Correct me if I'm wrong. This is an article from a couple months ago, but this is fucking. And those are pretty much the issues there. The defense: a constitution is necessary for a blockchain like EOS to operate efficiently. The articles outlined are like the terms of service for other technical services. According to the man behind the constitution, these terms must include at the very least 4 principles. Agree to be truthful and to not profit by false or misleading statements, nor by withholding information the other party has a right to. Reciprocal recognition of the equal rights of other members to property ownership and honest communication. Non-initiation of force. Agree to submit to arbitration. Now, these rules, I think we can get behind these. The issue is more how they might be enforced and how they are written into the Constitution. But these are common sense. These are common sense rules. These are what you do when you're acting in good faith. And yes, we should be acting under these. The question is how to enforce them. These principles all seem like reasonable terms, and supporters argue that the EOS Constitution follows them. Because scammers still run amok in cryptocurrency, a constitution is necessary for a blockchain platform to survive. No one should have trouble following the rules laid out in the article. And this guy's verdict is guilty. And he has a point here. Let's read it. The 21 strangers get to control the block rewards of the 21 block producers. There's a reason that EOS is one of the only blockchains with a constitution. You need a high level of centralization to enforce them, and that centralization can lead to corruption. Giving such a limited number of people the ability to freeze or redistribute funds is no better than current banking systems. I think he's overshooting a bit here. Like, it might be similar qualitatively, but quantitatively it's very different. Blockchain was built on the principles of decentralized governance and complete fund control. EOS takes that away. And this is where we run into the big issue. This is where you have to decide if you have your investor hat on or if you have your ideological hat on. Do you want to support projects that you personally believe in, that you want to see in the future, that you think are pushing technology forward, or are you here to invest? Or are you doing both, which is also valid? Now, for me personally, these things are not bad enough to make me not want to invest, but they make me cautious about supporting this project too much. Because there's just too many issues right now, and no. But I do think that EOS will likely have a very bright future, because we've talked through the technology and through their use cases and through what they're doing and through how much money they waste. This is a good tech company. It might not be a good cryptocurrency company because it goes against much of what crypto stands for. But if you leave that to the side for a moment and think about this like any other startup you might want to invest in, look at it as a stock instead of as a crypto token, then I think this is a good investment. And I personally still think that EOS is a good thing to invest in. I think there's a good chance that we will see it outperform most other cryptos in the future. And we've seen it the last couple of days. It has risen way more than most other tokens. I think just today it's up 10%. I would be shocked if we didn't see EOS A outperform most other cryptos in the next bull market, and B go to at least $25, if not $50, within the next year or two. I think that is going to happen unless they fuck up in some major way. Because they do have a scalable underlying technology, and they do have a lot of funding that they can use to deal with the issues, and it's a promising project with some serious red flags. But I have some more articles open. Let's just look at this quickly. This just sums up a few of the problems. The phishing, which I'm just so shocked that anyone fell for this, but people always fall for this bullshit. The bugs that we talked about, and decentralization. And comes to the conclusion that this is all an issue, of course, and this was also written while the blockchain was being built. And here, there's no set date to when the voting process for block producers will be completed, with days or even weeks being suggested. The question of whether network launch issues a short-term pain for long-term gain is a valid one. There's been a large-scale year-long project, and if by the end of network migration process an efficient and fully operating network is up and running, most will be forgiven. Now, I believe this more or less happened, and I think many people have forgiven some of the things. For the time being, the EOS model is a textbook example of how not to do a main network launch. And this is true. The only reason I pulled this article up is because the previous article was written before the main network launch and only had some amendments from later. The network launch was a complete disaster. There's no way around that. It was a complete fucking disaster, and they should have known. And this is why I'm saying there are red flags surrounding this. And why I would classify EOS as a good, promising investment, but higher risk than, say, XRP, where we have much more security, much fewer fuck-ups, much fewer fuck-ups, fewer red flags, and mathematical models that show high potential prices, and a lot of collaborations with big companies and banks, and better use case. I think EOS has a real use case. I think EOS does some really good stuff. I think EOS also does some really questionable stuff and has fucked up in major ways. So my word on EOS is cautiously invest, but I'm not an expert, don't listen to me. Just to end this out, some more recent EOS news. Last week, an EOS alliance formed and announced that it would try to build a communication network for EOS, that issues can be resolved more quickly. I think this is a step in a good direction. And we have heard that one of the points between it being relatively centralized is making decisions, being able to make them efficiently, correctly, according to the constitution, and this should help. Next up, you see I'm kind of flying through these because this video is getting really, really long. We have one major issue that the system has, and that is $200 million on the line, and they need to build a voting system. I will fly over the first parts of this article really quickly so you know what this is about. There's an account on the EOS blockchain with $35 million worth of tokens in it that no one can touch, and it's growing constantly. At the end of its first 12 months as a live blockchain, it will have 200 million in it, assuming a price of about $5. In theory, that's being set aside to fund initiatives that might be beneficial to the community, but there's one problem: there's currently no system in place to actually allocate the funds. This is another oversight, and EOS seems to have a lot of those. The EOS blockchain network was incomplete when it went live in June, with much of the functionality stipulated in the network's constitution and white paper remaining unbuilt. A key aspect of the protocol was a defined governance process, which avoided other blockchains' informal and controversial governance process. That governance process included the ability for token holders to vote in referenda, but that process of voting doesn't exist yet, and as such, the system has been in flux. The system seems to be at the heart of the question about whether the money will actually be used. While the white paper doesn't mention referendum voting, the constitution explicitly required the process for making decisions that affect the entire network, like setting up a system to spend the funding. So, a referendum is needed to ratify the still provisional constitution. Oversights after oversights. But you will notice these oversights are pretty much all in the constitution and in how centralized they chose to make it, not in the underlying tech. Highlighting what needs to be done to push EOS forward, Daniel Keyes, the co-founder and COO of EOS Nation, told CoinDesk there was no referendum system built in at launch, so it's up to us as a community to come together and build that. So now they have to figure out what they are going to do with all that funding, and there's currently two camps. One camp saying that this should be spent on projects that improve the that are good for the EOS project. The other one saying to burn all of it and just get rid of this. And honestly, I don't have an opinion on this. I don't feel I can make a statement about what they should be doing here. But I think we should keep this in mind as some uncertainty around EOS. And as I said in videos many times, uncertainty, bad. I'd rather have bad news than uncertain news. I'd rather know for sure that something good or bad is happening than not know for sure. And anytime someone can't decide what they're going to do, or a decision is drawn out too long, that is bad for me. Still, I think EOS will make it big, and we have one article from Ethereum World News here that also cites some things that should give us hope. For instance, there's a Chinese ranking for the technology behind individual crypto projects. Let's read this out. EOS has retained its top spot in the latest ranking of public blockchain projects released by the Chinese government. This latest ranking is the fourth since the index debuted at the end of May 2018. For the third month in a row, EOS has maintained its #1 spot. The delegated proof-of-stake blockchain project edged out Ethereum after the first rankings were released to gain the top spot since June. So, this is this rating project saying EOS is the best cryptocurrency from a technical level. And we see more here. In a tweet a few hours ago, Meet.one, an EOS-centric Twitter handle, brought to our attention the list of dApps now available on the platform. Here we see a lot of development on the EOS network. And we can expect a lot more because much of the 4 billion they are raised is being invested in development. So this is all about the use case. We see there's active development on top of the EOS platform, and EOS will live or die based on how much active development there is. They need to develop dApps that find mainstream adoption, and then EOS will also find adoption as a proxy. Like, that is ultimately what it comes down to. The moment a hit app is built on top of EOS, EOS will skyrocket. And that is why I'm so hopeful that EOS will, despite all the red flags, be a good investment. We see a lot of drive to develop on top of this, a lot of devs are working with this, and if just one of these platforms, if just one of these dApps on top of the EOS platform take off, that means EOS as a whole will potentially take off. So they're talking here about how EOS has already had very high gains and how it has delivered 10 times profit since its ICO. And it says it's expected to grow significantly as development continues. They don't provide a source, they don't provide numbers, so take this with a grain of salt, but I agree here. I think I've told you pretty much everything you need to know about EOS in this video. It might have been a bit rambling, I'm sorry about that, but I tried to get pretty much everything positive, everything negative in here. I tried to explain what EOS is, what the issues are, what people have against it ideologically, where they fucked up, and where they have potential. And my personal outlook is, EOS is a good cautious investment to put some money into. I think we can very realistically expect it to deliver 10 times profits again in the near future, in a year or two, when the next bull market hits. I think the underlying technology is more promising than many other crypto tokens, but I think there are valid reasons not to support this project, and I think there are enough red flags to be cautious about investing in it. Now, do let me know what you think. And with this, I'm gonna end this really long video. I hope you guys found this interesting. If you want me to do similar videos about other coins, do let me know, and I will see you guys soon.